Welcome back to the CP Media podcast here. Welcome, Richard. How are you this evening?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Angus. It's good to have the anchorman back after last week, trying to anchor the show myself and try and do a bit of talking at the same time. No, going well. Looking forward to the show tonight, and yeah, good to have my teammate back.
Yeah, I apologise for being tardy last week and not being able to front, but certainly got involved there one way, shape, or another.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's good. Good to have you healthy and back on the starting lineup again.
Yeah, look, it's good, isn't it? Especially with all that is still going on around us in the world, it's great to have good health and be able to get outside still.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's so good, and just one of the best things about this podcast that we're doing here, I've talked to a few people recently, and Brett Layden in particular mentioned that this is kind of like country calendar. Bringing out and cheering on all these awesome New Zealanders and awesome people, not just New Zealanders, doing their thing and sharing their stories, getting in the back end and finding out more about them.
Oh, it's an interesting reference, country calendar. I'm not. But we are the country calendar of endurance sport. Is that what we're saying?
I think that's what we're saying. Yeah, good.
Now,
true, real stories.
We didn't talk about this. I'm pretty sure we didn't, unless my mind's absolutely slipped. But we talk about, you just said that you've been talking to some people about the show and da. But have you not got a story from Auckland to tell us?
Yeah. A few weeks back, my wife went for a bit of a girls' weekend. Was having a hair done, and in that, while she was having a hair done, she was talking to the hairdresser, and she mentioned that she's been listening to this podcast, and she's a PT and starting to get into a bit more endurance sport. And she said she's listening to this podcast. It comes out on a Wednesday night every week, and then the others that were with Tash, my wife, sort of almost spat the coffee out at the same time, going, "Oh, well, actually, I think I know that guy." So world famous, eh? How about that? That's pretty cool.
Hey, that's awesome. That is awesome. Such good feedback, that is. Right, well, we have a show to run. We're not here just to talk about how famous we are, Rich, and who wants our next autograph. We actually got 3 brilliant guests lined up tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So from back to front, it's always good to go that way in terms of introducing the show. We're going to finish off with Kim Vargo. So she's our CP strength coach. You will have seen her in a whole bunch of strength videos that we've done if you do a bit of coaching with us. So we're going to talk to her specifically about her top tips of strength training and how to incorporate it into.
There's a bit of Kiwi freeze going on there, but there's no pressure for Kim this week. She's used to have been pre-recorded, and we're going to put her on front of the camera and go live. I can see her in the background there already fretting. Rich, you need to sort yourself out there. But second guest that we're going to have on is John Peebles, and John last year participated in the Tour Aotearoa, which is New Zealand's longest bikepacking adventure races that we do here in New Zealand, right from the top of Cape Reinga all the way down to Bluff. So can't wait to hear some stories from John of his journeys. And also we're going to start the show with Caden. And, Rich, you back?
Oh, am I back? Can you hear me again? How about now?
I can hear. You're just in time.
Yeah, let's intro Caden. So Caden is a elite level marathon runner with a PB of 2:15 for the marathon. So just some stats on 2:15. That's running 3-minute 12 Ks for an entire marathon. I don't think I can do one of those. And that's actually 19.2 Ks an hour if you're riding your bike or driving your car. So running along. So wore the back, and as a result of that PB, wore the black singlet in the World Champs in Doha late last year as well. So we're going to have a good chat about his training, his racing, and his journey to wear the black singlet represent New Zealand. And Caden's also a really key component of our performance network. So that's a bunch of people that we refer to, we trust, that will look after our athletes from strength, from nutrition, from physio, from mental skills, etc. So he works with a number of our people, and he's going to share some of his key tips as a physio to help develop running and your running and your movement, and then to stay injury free at the same time.
Extremely fast. That is just, I'd love to, I guess, to put that, like you say, put it in perspective. But what we actually need one day is to turn a treadmill on at 3-minute 15 pace and drop some people on the treadmill and see how long they can run on it for.
19.2 Ks an hour. Yeah, just hang in there. It's the whir of it go as it goes. Not many treadmills actually go that fast. That's another thing.
All right, without further ado, let's bring Caden in. Welcome, Caden.
G'day, guys. How we doing?
Good, thank you.
Good. Thanks,
Now,
Caden. How are you getting on tonight?
Doing well, thank you. Yep.
Yep.
Just
good
finished
stuff.
work actually, so managed to get some dinner in and get ready for this. So that's good.
Good job. Good job. How's the running? How's the balance of work and running and things like that going for you at the moment? Where are you at with, obviously, your season being COVIDed out, a lot of it, and goals change?
Yeah. So I think the week before lockdown, the week after lockdown, I was supposed to be going to Germany to prepare for Rotterdam Marathon. So after Doha, I realised that Olympic qualification was a possibility. Prior to that, I hadn't really crossed my mind. So I was preparing for that, and obviously that didn't go ahead. So I actually took the opportunity during lockdown just to get on top of some things that had been bothering me for a while. I'd had a left hamstring tendinopathy since Gold Coast Marathon that I hadn't quite addressed, and then my left Achilles flared up as well. So I had a bit of work to do during lockdown to get my body back into a place where I could train hard again. So it was kind of nice to have a bit of an opportunity to do that, and I did some stuff that I normally wouldn't do, like did quite a bit of plyometric training.
Cool.
And yeah, got myself in quite a good position. And I was actually in between jobs. I had left my previous role and hadn't quite started my new role. I was meant to start that when I got back from Europe, so I didn't do a lot of work during lockdown. I did some telemedicine consults and stuff like that. And then now, work and running is going well. I'm actually doing another paper at university at the moment as well. So just chipping away at getting my master's completed.
Yeah,
so
good. So body good shape, and developing the work side of things as well.
Yeah, it's tough balancing them all, but I do enjoy working, and I do enjoy running, and I enjoy studying. So it's just about being organised, really. That's what it takes. It's just good planning and good organisation.
Good stuff. So we're pretty fortunate to be able to grab you tonight and to be able to share your story. So could you kick off with just a bit of background on yourself, your story? How long have you had the goal of running for New Zealand for?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think when I was a youngster, I always dreamed of being an All Black, I think, as most Kiwi kids did, and I played a lot of rugby. But then I remember picking up this book in my grandfather's library at home, which was actually John Walker's book. And I remember reading that, and I was just captivated by it. And I think I read it in a couple of days. It was, I was pretty young at the time. That was when I sort of first got a passion. Well, I got an interest in running, and also sort of the dream of running for New Zealand was sparked just hearing about the exploits of, or reading about the exploits of John Walker. And running was also something that came quite naturally to me. So going for a run was never very difficult, and I got quite good success at it from a young age. So from about sort of 10 years on, I really loved running and wanted to go as far as I could in the sport.
And you've got you grew up in Dunedin and ran around the hills of Dunedin. And I have to say that's a spot that I sort of took up running and got out and about around Ross Creek and enjoyed that as well. So awesome place as a runner. But you had a really good, group and community and coaching in those early years as well.
Yeah, I was very fortunate with the people that I met when I was younger. My first coach was a man called John Linyard, who he lives in Nelson now, but he was my school teacher in intermediate, and he saw my running talent when I first started intermediate with him, and he took me under his wing a bit and got me running, and we used to go running after school, and he sort of encouraged me to do club running. And then when I went to high school, I was fortunate enough to meet a man called Richard Barker, who coached me right up until I was 20. And so he really set the foundation for me and taught me a lot about life, but taught me a lot about training, and really pushed long-term development as an athlete, and never put results at secondary school ahead of long-term development. So he really educated me heavily on aerobic training and the benefits of a good planned training program. And we just had a lot of fun. Like, we just spent hours running on the hills together, and I couldn't have asked for a better introduction to the sport and a better apprenticeship in the sport. And he's a lot of what he's taught me I still implement today, for sure.
And a lot of those are those Lydiard principles, coming back to that, aren't they, in terms of that aerobic engine and building that from the start, and the miles that you're running?
Yeah, as most people who compete against me know, my pure speed's not super flash. So, yep. The emphasis was always on aerobic development, and we always knew that the marathon was where I was going to end up. So Richard was always, quite good at sort of educating me on the benefits of the Lydiard program. Wouldn't say I follow a specific Lydiard program now, but I think the principles remain the same. So, my coach Chris Balone has been influenced by Lydiard, but we follow. We don't stick to Lydiard schedules, but So I was very fortunate. I had someone like that in my life. Yeah, I think I wouldn't have made it to Doha without his help.
Yeah, great. So you were at university running lots. You were studying hard, and then you ended up in an American university. Talk us through how that came about and that experience over in the States.
Yeah, so that was an interesting one. Richard and I had discussed going over to the States, and we'd sort of decided that it probably wasn't the right thing for me to do. And to be honest, I never had any interest when I was at high school, because the best I finished in high school, I got second in the road race at New Zealand secondary schools, and my top placing in the cross country was 11th. So I wasn't one of the top guys. But then I had a pretty big year. 2007, I started training pretty well once I got to university, sort of starting to do double days for the first time. And I also trained quite a bit with a guy called Luke Haring, who sort of took me under his wing a bit, and we used to do some pretty good training together. So I improved quite a bit that year. And I ran 14:39 for 5K in December 2017. And awesome. I was the second fastest junior Kiwi that year. So that sparked a little bit of interest. And then Peru contacted me the following January or February. And they actually flew out to Auckland, the two coaches, and met me in Auckland. I was actually injured at the time. And they offered me a full scholarship. And because of the academic standard of Peru, it was really a no-brainer. Like, I couldn't turn that down. And Richard encouraged me to go. So I accepted a full scholarship and then left the following August. And got over there. So that was a fairly. What's that? Sorry.
I was just going to say, how did that go? The pressure of racing. How did you deal with that? And that's regular racing, heaps of training. How did the body cope? How did you cope with that side of things?
It's an interesting time, and as I mentioned to you, my viewpoint on that time's changed. I think as I've matured and gotten older. But when I first got there, I was a little bit naive. I'd never left New Zealand before. I was 20, and the furthest north I've been is Auckland. So I hadn't lived outside of New Zealand, or travelled outside New Zealand. So it was definitely a culture shock. And my expectations were probably not very real about how I was going to cope with that. But I went over and I had a bit of a niggle, so I hadn't been running a lot. And my first race there was the pre-national cross country, which, if anyone who knows NCAA cross country, the pre-nationals is very, very high quality meet. And I was in the open race. There was two races. There was the blue race and the white race, and I was in the open race. And the open race was sort of for the guys that couldn't make the top 5 of their team. And I got 50th. And the guy that won the blue race, Sam Chalanga, went through the 5K split and an 8K cross country in 14:10. So it was just a massive massive shock for me. I was like, oh wow, okay, I've got a fair bit of work to do, which motivated me. In the following year, I actually qualified as an individual for the NCAA cross country champs in 2009, and that was that took a huge performance. I sort of look back at my career and think there's sort of been two or three real key performances. That race was I beat some very, very good runners that day to finish 10th in the Great Lakes region, which got me an auto spot for the NCAA champs, and then Doha Gold Coast and then Doha. But yeah, and then after that I sort of struggled a bit. I got pretty homesick, and my performances started to drop off a bit, and I think that was because all the good work I'd done with Richard in New Zealand, all the aerobic base had slowly started to wear away a little bit with the hard anaerobic training that we were doing. And then also I just over time I didn't cope as well with the change in environment, and the pressure was high, and at that time I didn't have the skill set to really deal with that level of pressure. How I would manage it now would be completely different, but it was a tough learning curve because in some ways I didn't do as well there as I could have because I didn't have the skills to navigate that pressure, but it also made me realize that I needed to learn those skills, and ultimately that's what led to me performing well in Gold Coast and then Doha. So I ended up with some pretty severe injuries in my last year there. I had 2 femoral stress fractures in my right leg, and came home pretty sort of fed up with racing, and it took me about a year to get some form of motivation back to race. I still loved running and still got out running every day, but I couldn't quite take my body to where I needed to perform. So I went from being a 14:25k runner in the US to then running 15:36 at the New Zealand championships in 2012 and coming second to last.
So you finished your study and things over there, come back to New Zealand?
Yeah, I graduated. Yeah, so I spent 3 years there and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in pre-physical therapy. So it wasn't until I got it sort of coincided with me doing physiotherapy. I sort of transferred some credits across from the University of Otago, which put me in the pre-physical therapy course, which just was coincidence, really. So towards the end of my time at Purdue, after I suffered my first femoral stress fracture, I was kind of like, oh, actually, I'd quite like to be a physio. So I applied to the School of Physiotherapy at Otago once I graduated from Purdue and got accepted there. So I was proud of my performances there, and I was proud of my degree, but I was certainly it was the steepest learning curve, one of the steepest learning curves you can have. And I'm also pleased that I was able to get myself out of that and perform well again.
Yeah. So timeframes, you finished there in 2011, is that right?
Yeah, I graduated in 2011. And then came home in May of 2011. Yeah.
So you come back a bit broken, back like into university, physiotherapy school, build yourself back up again, and get back into racing. So 2019 is kind of really your breakthrough marathon, isn't it? When you perform well. So there's a fair gap. There's a fair bit of work to be done and building back into there. What's kind of going on in those intermediate years?
Yeah, there was an interesting time. So coming back 2011, it took me about a year to really want to race again, and my performance was really poor comparative to what I'd done in the States. Partly, I was still struggling with what had happened to myself, what I'd been through in the US. I couldn't quite make sense of it. I'd lost confidence in my body to train hard. So after having 2 femoral stress fractures, prior to that, I thought I was pretty bulletproof. I thought, I can handle 200k a week and I'm fine. But that really blew that a little bit. So part of me that was, had a bit of mongrel and was resilient, got knocked, and I lost that side of my person. Well, I didn't lose it, but I couldn't access it for a while. And and then going through physio school, that's pretty busy. It was a lot of work, and I was pretty determined. Like by then I was 23, 24, and I was still living at home with my parents. I was pretty determined to, get a career and get a job and be able to support myself. And it was a bit tough trying to, fund trips and stuff at that time. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't travel a lot and to races and that sort of thing. So, and I just probably wasn't taking that good care of myself as well. So overall, my performances were pretty poor. Like, not nothing like I was doing in the States. And then 2013, I managed to win the New Zealand 10,000 meter title, which was done on a really hot day in Timaru. And the interesting thing about that was I'd actually been working as a labourer over the summer period for Lund Construction in Dunedin. I was painting a crane, so I was wearing about 3 layers of clothing and a respirator. So I think I was heat adapted for the race.
Yeah.
But once I graduated from physio school and met my wife, and I was able to, once I was working, I was able to actually invest a bit more time into running again, and I could afford to, make sure I had a good gear and could travel to races and that sort of thing again. So, and then Pallone, my coach, gave me a pretty hard word in the start of 2017, and he sort of said to me, "Look, Caden, if you really want to achieve your goals, then you're going to have to really knuckle down and put some effort in." And that was a pretty big turning point for me. I sort of, when my first couple of years of work, I was quite bad at working big hours and not prioritizing my own training and that sort of thing. So I had to do that again and be a bit better organized. And and so from 2017 onwards, things started to build again. I was training pretty regularly. I'm pretty strict with how much volume I do. I always sort of make sure I'm running close to 700 minutes of running a week. And I've been like that.
So how hours and how much distance are you running in that?
Oh, it would be variable depending on the terrain. So we tend to train based on minutes rather than distance. I don't use the GPS or anything like that. I just run to time. But we say sort of 700 minutes is roughly 100 miles. I was 160k. Yeah. So I've only had 2 days off and since May of 2017, I think.
I'm just going to jump in here, Caden. Why minutes? Why do you run to minutes and not to distance? What's the theory behind that?
The reason, my theory, I've never actually spoken to Chris about it, but one, I've always done it because we never had GPS watches when I was growing up, and they sort of came about, and I never implemented them in training. But then two, minutes they're independent of pace, obviously. So on a recovery run, some days I'm running pretty slow. So if I was trying to, the purpose of a recovery run's to aid in recovery. So if I was trying to hit a target distance all the time, I think that would influence my ability to recover. Mm-hmm. Or rather, if I just go for a 60-minute run, it's just a 60-minute run. Mm-hmm. And then hills obviously slow you down. So if you're doing a lot of hill work, your volume might not look pretty, but your in terms of Ks, but your effort is. And then GPS is just pretty unreliable. As much as some people like to think it's pretty accurate, it's pretty poor. So you go running in Ross Creek in Dunedin, and it's really undercuts how much volume you've done because you're doing switchbacks all the time. So it's just
I just want to jump in terms of some of the mental, things that you've been working on to really, through that breakthrough performance that you had last year, so first of all on the Gold Coast, to actually perform to your potential. Tell us a little bit about some of the things you're doing there and some of the challenges you're having, and then how you actually dealt with that to actually run to your potential.
Yeah, so a couple of performances highlighted it for me. Gold Coast half marathon in 2018, I really underperformed. I'd been going quite well in training, and I'd had a bit of stress outside of running leading up to the race, and I didn't cope so well with that, and then just went into the race and really underperformed. So I sort of felt pretty disappointed after that race. And then again in the Zatopek Classic, the 10,000 Australian 10,000 meter champs in December of 2018. I should have run a PB, but just disengaged a bit during the race after 5K and ended up running just over 30 minutes. I think I ran 30:01 or something like that. And again, was really disappointed about that, and I couldn't quite understand what was happening. So I actually sought out the help of Dr. Kerry Evans, who's a psychiatrist here in Christchurch, who works closely with a number of sporting teams, in particular the All Blacks. Just because I'd read a fair bit about his stuff and thought I needed to delve into what was holding me back a bit at times. And I think the thing I learned from that, it helped me understand what had happened in the US, but it also, I developed a mindset that wasn't conducive to great performances. It was conducive to good performances, but not conducive to great performances. And I think part of me was afraid to take risks at times because of the outcome. So I've become a lot less focused on outcome in races these days, and more focused on my approach to a race and managing. Essentially, the brain will stop you before you're actually physically past your capabilities. So, how I view running these days is just about trying to find where my limits are. So if I can control my brain a little bit better when I'm racing, particularly the primitive part of my brain, then I can get a bit more out of myself. And I noticed things that were happening in races that I perceived as fatigue, or a common thing is lactate. Runners will talk about feeling lactate. I realized those things weren't actually necessarily physiological, more neurochemical. So at certain times in a race where I felt pressure or I was feeling under the pump, I'd start doing things that would slow me down. So I'd start looking at the other athletes around me, comparing myself to them, or getting stuck into a bit of a negative loop where I'd be thinking that I haven't done enough training, or these guys are better than me in this way. And it's a really once you get stuck into that space in a race, it's good night nurse, really. So one of the things I worked pretty hard on last year was trying to change the neural pathways and have a different way of approaching races and approaching competition and within competition. So Gold Coast was a good example, because the prior year I'd sort of gone into my shell a wee bit because I was running against some guys that had run at the Olympics, and I sort of didn't think I was good enough to be there. And then 2019 at Gold Coast, I ran a good portion of the race with Benson Lawrence, who was the Australian 10K record holder at the time. I mean, he's run 27. I think he'd run 27:20 for 10K. And then I caught up to Yuki Kawauchi, who won the Boston Marathon in 2018. And I think the prior year I would have not coped with that, running in against company like that. But 2019 I really saw it as an opportunity, and really, I think seeing those guys as people that were there to push me and help me rather than seeing them as a threat. So it's quite simple in a way, but it takes a lot of work, because you have to be okay with acknowledging that you actually haven't been doing that well in some areas, and it's difficult because your brain's telling you the complete opposite of what you should be doing. So it was more sort of walking towards pressure and being okay with pressure, and also acknowledging that anxiety was going to be present in those situations. And I think a lot of the time we talk about anxiety as a thing that we should, everyone says, "Oh, be relaxed before a race, be calm," but no one's calm before a race. and you have to accept that, and then you have to be comfortable with being really anxious before a race, and still being able to keep composed and controlled, but see the pressure as an opportunity, not a threat.
Yeah, nice. And I really like that, the fact that these people next to me are going to help me run my best, rather than I'm competing against them and I wish they weren't here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think if I look back, a lot of my best performances, they have been when I've been in really, really big competition, and it was the same in Doha. I was could have easily have gone the other way, but instead I was like, oh, great. This kid from Dunedin's going to give these boys a bit of a run and we'll see what happens. And I think, yeah, really that energizes you. Whereas if you're constantly worried about other athletes beating you, then that does the opposite. It doesn't energize you at all. So, racing's all about getting the most out of yourself. So that's really how I view it these days. It's just see how far I can go. And, if there's someone that's physically better than me, then that's cool. But I don't want to be holding myself back because I'm afraid to put myself on the line.
So what, Caden, what would you give as your 2 top tips for those that are out there watching, for those that want to run fast, that want to run far and still want to enjoy running it? What would you put your 2 sort of best, go-to tips to?
I think the thing I preach often as a physio is, it takes a lot of time to become a resilient runner if you're new to running. So having patience, that's a massive virtue as an athlete. Trying not to climb the mountain overnight, but, see it as a long-term plan and make sure you're prepared well. I think having good people around you to advise you is really important, and just setting realistic goals along the way, and just making sure that you respect your body and the time it needs to get used to running. Another one. Oh, you got me on that one. Yeah, I think patience is important. And then, I think it is, running's not about comparing yourself to other people. It's about getting the most out of yourself. So I think that's the problem sometimes with Strava and those sorts of things, is everybody's comparing and looking at what everyone else is doing. But at the end of the day, it's just about you and your journey. So keep focused on yourself and getting the most out of your body, and then I think you'll be a lot happier with your running.
Perfect. No, good job, Caden. They're great things to share with others, and I think that I just enjoy running for running's sake, and I really like the fact that you're running and just for minutes and time, and to make sure that run is a recovery run, and I can just jog today rather than thinking about getting that distance done. Really like the fact that you're focusing on your own performance, and that comes through in your racing as well. So some really good things to be able to share with others. Thanks heaps for sharing. I know that we could probably continue to talk. You've got so much to share. And obviously, as a physio, you're a great man to go and see and share that experience and help out. And you've done that with me, getting some strength training going on and helping me with my performance as well. So thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing, and all the best for the upcoming race season and seeing how fast you can actually go.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Caden.
Good job. Well done, Caden.
Interesting there, Richard. You can run as fast as you want, or you can, get yourself to that point that you can run as fast as you can, or ride or whatever. But note that, a lot of people always come back to that high end pressure. Once you really get into that top level and all that pressure mounts on you, how important that mental state of mind actually is to you.
Well, you just give yourself an opportunity, don't you, with your training? And there's so many things that can affect you on actually doing your time or competing against others on race day. So it does come down to that mental side of things. How do I actually cope with that? And it is actually walking forward to the challenges, Caden said, rather than worrying about what else is happening and just having a crack. You're better off going down in a blaze of glory and it not going well, trying to see if you can stay with that person rather than just hanging back and I don't think I'll go there now.
Correct. And do you know what else is a mental game? I tell you what else is a mental game. Is getting on your bike every morning for like 25 mornings in a row so that you can ride from one end of the New Zealand to the other. After you've already done bloody 150 Ks every day or whatever you've done. God, that's a mental challenge in its own, right? Yeah,
love to have a crack at that. But let's learn a little bit more about that. How the type of people that do it and some experiences along the way. John, are you there? Come in.
I am, thanks, guys. Yeah, thank you. Interesting, actually, because I actually almost think it's the opposite. I think the mental challenge is sort of sitting there thinking, how am I going to do 3,000 Ks and get down to the bottom of the country? Whereas it's easier just to sort of wake up each day and turn up and say, right, well, let's head off and see where we get to. That's probably more of the approach that we took to. So that's what got us through.
We might jump around here a bit, but let's just start there. When you started the Tour Aotearoa is what you rode, 3,000 odd k's from Cape Reinga to Bluff, basically, all by bicycle. Did you have a game plan? Did you have I have to ride this amount of k's every day, no matter what? Or
I had spent a bit of time sort of looking at the track, the course, and the distances, and sort of marking out sort of reasonable stops, and had set a plan of a few harder days, a few quieter days, but generally had a target to get to each day. But went into it with the thought being, you never know quite what's going to happen, puncture, breakdown, something major goes wrong. So I sort of wanted to stick fairly close to that, so we had a bit of leeway that we sort of got through before we had to get back to work. But at the same time, not being not being too stressed by it. Well, hopefully
yeah,
not.
because I mean that's the first thing. So 25 days it took you to do it? Is that...
We did it technically. I'm saying 25 because we finished sort of about 10 in the morning, and we'd started about 1 o'clock. So it was actually our 26th day that we actually we rolled over, but before the 24-hour period.
Given. So that's something like for the average person. I know Tour Aotearoa is probably on my bucket list of things to do, but I think it's a 2-year project. Like I have to save a year's worth of holidays in the leading up year to be able to apply take a month off work to actually go and do it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sort of probably a bit luckier now. Our kids have grown up and off our hands, and so sort of got that time where there's a little bit more free time to do it. And I just sort of just did have to find somebody to cover my my seat at work and things like that. But fortunately managed to get that. That was probably the hardest thing, actually, to make sure I had that cover. And once I had that, then it was all good to go.
So let's quickly talk. Let's talk some highlights. What were the highlights of 25 days of sitting on your backside?
In some ways, I struggle because I don't remember too many bad points. There were lots of different areas around which I did enjoy. I really quite enjoyed up in the North Island, probably just the far north. Hadn't really been around there. The ride down from Cape Reinga down to sort of Poto Point. Quite enjoy going through Auckland because the bike tracks they have through there, the Northwestern Cycleway and then the Southeastern one, which take you through, are so efficient, and you sort of go beside the motorway and you're cycling along, and met quite a few people using those bike tracks who sort of will give you a good thumbs up and cheer on and that sort of thing. And that was quite cool. And
did you find that along the way? Did people know what you're up to?
Yeah, quite a few did seem to, actually. Yeah, I think it's quite well known. Because of the way that it starts, we started towards the end of the first wave. They had about 7 days, and then there was another wave which started about 5 days or so after us. That's all to do with the tides on Cape Reinga. And so there'd been a few people through ahead of us, which also probably led the way.
I know we were on our way back from Karapoti, I think, and we're at the ferry terminal and ran into half a dozen people that rode in there, and they were absolutely stoked that we knew what they were up to and a friendly voice to chat to. They obviously had enough of chatting to themselves. So how many people were in your gaggle? Were you alone or did you have a group? Or
No, I rode with a friend. When I sort of first started thinking about doing it, I sort of put the idea out to a few people and didn't get much of a response. But then, a friend of mine, Steve Manning, was keen to do it as well. And so we then sort of, it would have been a good sort of year, 18 months back, we sort of decided, we'd try and work towards it. And then we sort of headed off from there. So, and we probably went into it thinking, never know what happens over the course of a month and riding together, and whether we may find we get fractures with each other or we ride at different paces or things. But we ended up sticking together all the way to the end, and had a great time.
Awesome, John. What's this is a real gear orientated thing, because you're obviously self-supported effectively, aren't you? So what's your key gear tip in regards to doing this this event?
So what was that?
Well, your best gear tip, because it's all about gear, isn't it? Lightweight, and you have to carry it all. You're self-supported. What's your go-to? What's your thing that you've learned and want to share?
My issue with the worst thing I did was did take too much weight. I tend to prefer to, or someone who prefers to make sure I've got everything just in case, and I had to sort of learn to be a bit more relaxed and to back off. I think I had a couple of spare lights, for example, which I didn't need, and yeah, a few things like that which I could have dumped, and probably if I was doing it again, I reckon I could probably easily drop 5 kilos on what I carried.
Right. That's a big
That's
difference.
It's quite a lot. Yeah, exactly.
So what do you do what did you do for, obviously, did you have one set of clothing for off the bike, and how many cycling, I guess, associated clothing, how many sets of bibs did you have, or?
Basically 2 sets of cycling clothing. Yeah, two shirts, 2 bibs, and I think a couple of pairs of socks, which we just tend to try and wash stuff overnight. Most of it, because it was February, it would dry pretty well, so no great issues there. And then had a second set of clothing for sort of wearing off the bike. You know, one of the hints which was told to me was sort of saying, get out of your sweaty bib shorts, and as soon as you get off the bike, and just so you're not sort of hang around those too long.
Yep.
And so tried to do that sort of thing, really.
Yeah. And what
lots of chamois cream. What did I ride? I had a hardtail, 29-inch hardtail.
Yep.
And that, again, biggest decision for me was whether I was going to go with that or go with a gravel bike. And everyone has a different opinion on that. There's a really good Facebook page for Tour Aotearoa, and there's always a lot of discussion on that, on what you should ride. It probably doesn't matter too much. I was really pleased with my hardtail, and it went really well. So yeah, that was good.
Nice, John. What about lowlights? This is a tough event to do, and it's a long time, 25 days riding your bike. There must be a few bits that you're like, oh, what am I doing here?
The first day for us was actually it, because we had a southerly along 90 Mile Beach, and and because of where we started on a Sunday, because it was just, I thought that was going to be easier as far as getting up there, because it's 6 hours or so from Auckland to get up to Cape Reinga before you start. So we'd sort of headed up on the Saturday, and then it was a 1 o'clock start, and the southerly had come up, and yeah, so it was just, the first bit was quite nice. You go about 15 k's on the road, and then you head about 7-8 k's along the Tapaki Road towards Tapaki Stream, and beside the sand dunes there, watching the people on sandboards, and that was cool. And then you got on the beach, and it was whatever, 6 or 7 hours, and we were doing about 10 to 12 k's. Heart rate was sitting at about 150, 160, and that was a slog. And by the time, you know, after about 3 or 4 hours of that, it was getting pretty tough, and that was where we were wondering what to do. And we rolled off the beach in the dark. We had a beautiful sunset at about 8:30 at night, and then actually about that time the wind just dropped a wee bit, and our speed suddenly picked up to about 18 k's, and we rode that last bit under lights, and we were dodging the waves as they were coming in and out, because above it was all soft sand, you couldn't ride. And you know, and a couple of hours before, I didn't know if we were going to get off the beach or whether we'd be camping, but we rode under lights and got into Ahapara about 9:30 at night, and that was really satisfying to sort of get through there. But we were pretty stuffed. Yeah, that was day one.
How do you? One question I had from a couple of others that I mentioned I was talking to you today was, how do you train for it, and how do you pace yourself and kind of know how far you're going to ride each day? How do you prepare yourself for that?
It's hard to know. I underestimated how difficult it was. I sort of looked at the books and things. There's some great wee books which they put out with sort of the tips on what to do, and they have I don't know if you can see that, the elevations for various segments. Mm-hmm. And I sort of had a look at those and added up the elevations and got an idea, but that underestimated all the little bits and ups and downs, and probably each day there was double the elevation what I'd initially judged or calculated. So there was quite a lot more work than I thought. But most of my training was just normal, sort of like the CP rides on Wednesday nights, the getting out on a Saturday and doing long rides, and then had a few, not a large number, but a few rides sort of fully laden with all the gear. And yeah, I did quite a good one, nice one around from Blenheim round to Havelock and through Whites Bay and up over into Picton around that one day, which Matt Sherwood had put me onto, and we went over to Little Akalara on a few times, which was good because that was good climbs up and down the Banks Peninsula. Is good for getting that hill training, really.
Great stuff out there on the Banks Peninsula. So fully laden, how much like you said, you only did a few rides fully laden to get used to it, but
Yeah,
obviously there's quite a lot of difference in a bike handling when it's fully laden.
yeah, it was pretty well balanced, but quite a lot of weight over the handlebars. I sort of tried to. I had the frame bag which probably had about 4 or 5 kilos in it. There was a seat post bag hanging out the back which was about 4 kilos, and then handlebar bag was about another 4 kilos. So it was spread pretty evenly around. I avoided a backpack. I was sort of advised to do that, and I definitely think over that long distance, if you're stopping and starting, not pulling a backpack on your sweaty back is quite nice not to do. I probably carried too much water. I had space for 4 drink bottles, and and a lot. I was particularly up north when they had the drought. I was not quite sure what we were going to find, but even going, you'd go through the far north, and there'd be chili bins out at the side of the road with water saying on the TA, help yourself, sort of thing, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So a lot of support. So yeah, it was heavy, but yeah, most of it, the weight you notice going up the hills, particularly some of the steep climbs going up Haas Pass, going up the last bit of the Crown Range, and particularly the Mongatapi Saddle coming out of Havelock as you go across towards Nelson. The last bit of that was definitely walking, and it's heavy pushing a laden bike up there.
So that's a good point. So you walked up there. How much walking did you do, and what sort of shoe were you riding in?
I was using what do they call it, the XPD cleats, just mountain bike shoes.
Yeah, but so do you have like quite a soft sole or a carbon sole? Or
no, it was plastic sole, just a Shimano off the rack Shimano shoe. It basically is what I've been riding on the mountain bike for ages. The Mongatapi track destroyed those. The sole came away. I noticed as by the time we got to the top, so it was a quick trip into a bike shop in Nelson to replace those as they got shot. But yeah, we didn't actually. I think we did less walking than I would have expected. The only real bit that we did was actually that last 3Ks up that saddle. I think pretty much everything else, even with the laden bike, managed to ride, which was good.
Nice. So let's jump to the end. Let's jump to Bluff. And when you arrived there after 26/25 days, and you arrived there, tell me what that is like. Is it a feeling of triumph? Is it a feeling of, is it an anticlimax feeling or emotional? Or
it was almost a bit of an anticlimax. We'd sort of come from the day before. We'd sort of come across on the boat across from Queenstown through to Walter Peak, and then ridden the round the mountains trail from Walter Peak out. And the weather forecast was telling us there was a southerly about to hit. And having memories etched in our brains of that southerly coming down Cape Reinga, we were sort of dreading what riding out to Bluff was going to be. So we got to Mossburn where we were going to overnight, and at that stage the weather was still good. So we thought, fine, look, let's just push on. So we did another 70 odd Ks to get to Winton, and then the next morning we still had the wind behind us, and so we met up, 2 of us, Steve, and there's another chap, an engineer from New Plymouth, who we'd ridden off and on with over the previous few days, and the 3 of us basically just went as a mini peloton out to Bluff, and we were doing 30 to 35 Ks with this tailwind, and it was suddenly so easy, and it was quite an anticlimax as we rolled in about sort of 10 o'clock in the morning and thinking, hang on, we can't be here already.
But it allowed you to do that after the start.
It allowed us to do that, and so we celebrated with a swim in Fovo Strait just to finish off with.
Just to have a wee shower after 25 days.
Absolutely, got to freshen up somehow.
To finish up, John? What's your 1 or 2 sort of key tips for others that are looking to do this?
Oh, definitely do it. If you get the opportunity, you can get that time off to do it. It's definitely worth doing it. I think the Facebook page is really useful. It makes there's lots of hints and tips on that. Probably get your navigation sorted. That's quite useful. There's a few good things. I used a Garmin, and I load the trails on that, which was good for your day to day. But every so often you could get a bit confused with what it was telling you. And there's a chap who downloaded a mapping app or the files onto a mapping app called Map Toaster, and that was actually really useful because you could use it even when you weren't near the if you're out of cell phone range, as long as you preloaded it, and that was quite useful just to make sure you're heading the right direction.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
And
So 2022, write it down, Angus. 2 years to make sure you do it.
Yeah, 2022, maybe. Let's not put anything out here live, Richard. You know what happens when we talk about things on here.
That's the best way.
We're held to them. John, two last things. One, would you do it again?
Yeah, I would actually. I sort of came off it sort of humming and hawing. I think that possibly the other one I'd want to do is the Tour Aotearoa, which is the one going from the Cape to Cape. So that's going across from East to West Cape in the North Island. Yep. That's slightly shorter, but still looks an interesting one. And you covered different trails. We met people on the Timber Trail. We crossed over with them as we're riding through that. But apart from that, it's a different ride. But I'd quite like to do it. I'd like to do it and be a bit more sensible, cut the weight down, and probably aim to camp a bit more. And but I'd also probably try to do it in a few less days.
And
that would be the
challenge. So I guess the last question is that how accessible is this challenge? Like 25 days, 3,000 kilometers, top to the bottom, sounds like a pretty big bite of the apple there, all in one go. How accessible is it quite easy for someone to accomplish this?
I think it is. I mean, a lot of it you can build your fitness as you go through, and if you've got a reasonable level of fitness when you start, and that's what we're banking on, then actually you thick your way through without being too bad. Yeah, no, I think it's accessible for most people if they set their mind to it. You do want to sort of have a think about what you're carrying, what you're getting your training, and you have had that level of fitness beforehand. But yeah, no, it's achievable, definitely.
Oh, well, we look forward to the Team CP Tour Aotearoa training sessions that you're going to put on. now that you're the expert. Now that you're the expert at Tour Aotearoa.
If only, but it was fun. Yeah, it was good.
All right. Thank you so much, John, for joining us
and
sharing a little bit of your Tour Aotearoa trip. Love to talk to some more about that because you just never know, right?
Absolutely. Yep, definitely.
Good job, John.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic.
Great.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Good job.
Oh, now on Thursday.
2023. 2023.
2023, we're getting a year out.
Write it down. It's on my bucket list as well. What a great thing to be able to do. Cycle touring is just the best way of traveling, is it? You got time to milk the cows and you just see things, and you've got time, and it's you can eat whatever the heck you like, and the journey and the fun is actually getting there rather than getting to the destination, then thinking about what am I going to do next.
And it's really funny that I see the event as the hardest thing about that event to me is getting a month off work. Like that's sort of the biggest challenge that I actually need to overcome to actually be able to do it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. One of those things, isn't it? It's just one of those life things that you need to tick off to make sure you make that time. I know one of the best things I've ever done is cycle toured across the Pyrenees, and just amazing just to be able to do that over a number of days, and you really just get into a rhythm of it as well. Like it's you set challenges, you change how long you're going for or how hard you're going. You have rest days, easy days, harder days, and it's just fantastic experience. So it's definitely on my bucket list as well, Angus.
And it can only be good for you. I've witnessed again once more tonight on our CP Wednesday night Zwift sessions how strong John is now, and it's certainly built some strength into him. But talking of building strength, one lovely lady that we like to share some time with, Kim Vargo, come on in.
Hello.
How's the Kiwi internet there?
Good, just killing it out here, actually. Yeah. Really good.
All over it. Kim, I wanted to get you on the show as you're a strength coach. Refer people to you to help sort of try and put that piece together with their athletes. Strength is super important. It's often one of those things, especially if we're doing multidiscipline, is to actually how do I fit another discipline into my training schedule and try and fit it with all the other things that I'm doing. How important is strength training, and is it something? Am I going to get bulk up? How does it affect you? Let's go back to the physiology and the science behind it.
Yeah, sure. I think as an endurance athlete, it's just a non-negotiable. It is something that you have to do, and you need to program it into your schedule. And I think the reality is a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to, lift some heavy weights. I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to get massive. And I'm just going to walk out looking like Arnold. And that's just not true. But I think the kind of the precursor actually is if you are going to start a strength program, make sure you get someone who actually knows, what they're doing that can take you through, because, there's some risks in lifting, and but the benefits are just super, super, super outstanding. There's so many. I could spend an hour probably just telling everybody how great strength training is. But yeah, I think there's a lot of myths out there that just need to be kind of put to bed, really.
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that physiology. What does strength training give us as an endurance athlete?
Yeah, sure. Like the reality is, it is excellent, and it's making you a more consistent and faster athlete because you're actually looking after yourself. You're looking after your ligaments. You're looking after your tendons. You're increasing your bone capacity. You're just increasing your body's ability to take on a heavier load for a longer period of time. So you can end up being, like I said before, more consistent, faster over a longer period of time, like multiple seasons. You can just keep performing and performing because you have that strength behind you.
Yeah, 100%. And in terms of lifts, equipment, what should we be doing there? Like we've been doing a bunch of stuff together, the body weight stuff. What are a couple of key bits of gear that people should be having in their home gym?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things that I like to say is kind of embrace the bells. The barbells, the dumbbells, the kettlebells. You don't have to have a super exquisite gym. Jake built me a squat rack out of some wood on that 24-hour challenge, and that's just been absolutely perfect. We have a barbell out there. We have a couple of kettlebells in the house and a few dumbbells, and it's not super heavy stuff, but they are definitely something that I would recommend. About a 12 and a 16 kilo, kettlebell, some 5s and 8s dumbbells, maybe some 10s, and just start with that. And if you're lucky to have a barbell, 100% get that in there and get some training with that as well.
Yeah, and what is a couple of key moves for a endurance athlete? What should we be doing? What's a couple of like your go-to must do for pretty much not everybody, but most people in regards to strength training?
Yeah, sure. I'm a big fan of squats. One of my favorite new quotes I just read is that a barbell and a squat rack should be as essential in your house as a refrigerator. So yeah, big time fan of some squats, deadlifting, getting that posterior chain. And yeah, squats and deadlifts are probably my big for the lower body. And I'm a big fan as well of a bit of push press, just upper body, something getting engaged with that. But if I were to write you a program, I'd probably do 3 or 4 moves, maybe something a little bit explosive, maybe some type of a power clean. And that's it. Keep it simple, like 3 to 6 reps of like 5 sets of that kind of stuff, resting for 2 minutes twice a week. It's not a huge amount of work that you have to put in to get some excellent results.
So if I don't have anything, if I don't have any bells, maybe I've got a dumbbell, but if I don't have any bells or I don't have a bar or whatever, what's something we can do at home to do a bit of strength building with our own body weight or something around the house or something like that?
Yeah, sure. We have a lot of fun at Richard's house kind of finding some different tools like a chair, a stool. We've used his picnic table for some, down under rows. There's a lot of stuff that you can do at home. And I think a lot of people underestimate body weight workouts. If you can do some real solid full body press ups, you're pushing your body weight off the ground. That's pretty impressive. You can do lots of squats, lunges, some plyometric jumping, skipping. I mean, we've just come up with a whole bunch of stuff for CP athletes just a couple of this last week on just a whole bunch of different moves that wasn't even really anything more than body weight. So if you don't have the weights, that's cool. Your body will actually give you a nice bit of resistance training.
And part of that being part of our current athlete Facebook page, that's where people we're currently working with. That's one thing that we look to put out every week as a workout of the week, some different stuff. And most of it's just body weight type stuff. And part of the reason for that is to make sure I actually do it myself. So it holds its purpose there. But it's good. And then it just means that you fit it in and let's get at least a couple of those done a week. 3 is fantastic, but at least doing it twice it makes a difference. And I'm noticing a difference as well.
And I think too, the reality is there's periodization going on. So if you're in pre-season, you're going to be potentially lifting or doing some heavier work than you would during your season. During your season, you're back into your sports specific stuff. So you could be doing some lifting for some maintenance, but you're not going to be getting out there doing an 85% of your 1RM when you're in the middle of your season. Your coach would be able to program that all for you, but your strength training will look different throughout the seasons for what you're trying to achieve.
And that's just not making sure you're not sore. So you can actually go running and you can ride your bike and go swimming and biking bits and pieces as well. Yep. And what about core strength as part of that as well? Like, how vital is that as far as running goes? You mentioned your squats and deadlifts, and also your pushing and pulling movements.
Yep. Oh, massive. Core is key. Like, I like to think about core to extremities. So any movement that you are going to do, you need to start by engaging the muscles of the core, right? So kind of like your glutes, your abs, kind of your hip area, just that whole kind of muscular girdle, if you can think about it, something around your midsection that's keeping nice and tight. So you activate that first, and then you can think about moving your arms, your legs, all that kind of stuff. It helps with balance. It helps with your posture. If you're a runner, keeping your shoulders back, being able to, it's essential for actually moving well.
Perfect. Good job. And one or two key tips to finish up, Kim, in terms of in regards to anything else to add that we've missed out?
Yeah, I think mobility plays a massive role of strength training as well. Yep. You've got to be able to get that full range of motion from your joint. And, endurance athletes, as I'm starting to learn while I'm doing my own training, you kind of stay in your same motion. Like, you run straight, you cycle straight, you stay in the same plane. And I think you just become a lot stiffer because you're not moving outside of those kind of realms. And so mobility, stretching, full range of motion is pivotal. And there's lots of ways you can access kind of programs, YouTube, some foam rolling, some ball. There's lots of stuff out there, but mobility needs to be in your plan just as much as strength training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you can move well and moving sideways rather than just in one direction all the time. And that's where playing football with the kids out the back sort of thing, all those sorts of things make a difference as well. So you can do that. You're not going to injure yourself when you're doing these other movements as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that is a big part, is just get out and play, move in different planes instead of going straight sideways, just move, play, have fun. Yeah.
Good job.
Brilliant. Well, Kim, thank you for joining us. Look forward to some more At Home with Kim videos on the CP community and our CP athletes pages, and look forward to maybe partaking in a few of those challenges there that maybe I always watch, but maybe I'm not getting strong by just watching TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Well done.
Thanks
Cheers, Kim.
All right, see ya. Bye.
Bye.
Good job. Right, so we've got strength training lined up. We've got your goal set out for the next 3 years, haven't we? And
I'm going to need a bigger diary. But actually, speaking of diaries and speaking of things that should be in the diary, we've got a few things coming up just over the next week or two or three. Assuming that we all play ball and we all play nicely and COVID lets us do those things. But the first thing next week, not this weekend, but the next weekend, Saturday the 29th, just want to have a quick reminder about that. The Forest Run Fest at Bottle Lake Forest, put on by Fusion Events. There is a run there for everyone. It's a night run starting at 6 o'clock for the half marathon runners. There's a half marathon, a 10K, a 5K, a 2K, and a kids race. So if you're looking for something to do on a Saturday night that doesn't include going to the pub, check out forestrunfest.co.nz, and hopefully we'll see you there with a head torch.
Yeah, they do a great job of events, the Fusion Events team.
Yep. And once you've done that and you've burned a few calories and you've had a wee sleep and things, it's actually time for our spring brunch ride.
Yeah, how good.
I was trying to bring it. There it is. Look, there it is. The annual spring bunch run, ride, or walk.
Yeah, we've been doing that for as long as Team CP has been rolling, and some of the early pictures are pretty funny. I'm not as grey as what I am now, that's for sure. The kids are still as little, so it's such a great time to get together. It's totally free. Come for a ride. Meet us out at the Raspberry Cafe out at Tai Tap. go for a ride, go for a run. Feel free to bring the kids along if you're running and they can bike beside you with their high-vis vest from school, and just join us and make sure you have a big piece of cake and coffee to make sure we replenish all those calories that we may have just burnt.
Yep, 100%. Fun for everybody there. And 19th of September. Actually, no, wait, let's back the truck up here just to keep the calendar rolling. A bit of a shameless plug here. This one here, the South Island Crossfest, which is going to be held at the Christchurch Agricultural Park, 12th and 13th of September, a 2-day extravaganza. And something for everybody if you're a bike lover. On Saturday, we are going to run for the roadies, a crit race, A, B, and C grade crit races around the ag park there. Saturday night, it's party time, and we're going to have some short track grass racing with a DJ pumping some sounds, maybe a beverage or two to be had there. And then the big day on Sunday where cyclocross will have its final shindig for 2020.
Good job. Locked on.
Following that, if you can get yourself through that, and I'm a bit concerned about this one myself because I've got a bit of a job to do there, but the 19th of September, it's the race time again, a real strange time, Richard, to be having this.
It is. So haul your body up the Dyer's Pass, up to the top, and then back up again to Hilltop, and just continue on to Akaroa. What a great day out, and a great time to ride your bike. So looking forward to being part of that, part of our bunch police to help support the race and keep it safe. We'll be out there doing that. And just a great excuse to ride your bike and have a day out.
That's it. So that's the calendar for now. We'll keep you updated with that as we get closer to those events. As always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will be back next Wednesday, same back time, same back channel, same great chat, Richard.
Perfect. And thank you to Caden, thank you to John, thank you to Kim for sharing their stories and sharing their expertise, and all the best until next week.
That's it. Until then, spread the awesomeness. Get out there and do it.
Well done. Over and out.
Push the wrong button.